Welcome back, everyone. So we're in week 4 already. We're almost halfway through the term. So this is a chance to get caught up in any assignments that you've missed and, try to get completely caught up this week, because if you continue to fall behind, it's really going to be hard to catch up after this week. So before we get into our Unit 4 or Module 4 information, I do want to point out that I will be grading your Milestone 1 assignment sometime today. So you should see that feedback and your grade posted very shortly. Once you get that feedback, please pay close attention to any changes I suggest and start developing your first part of your environmental paper, okay, or your final project paper. So the milestone itself covered under environmental issue points 1, 2, and 3, right? So you were able to describe the impact of the issue it has on the environment, the human quality of life, and the economy within your community, okay? So I highly suggest that you start putting this information that you researched for Milestone 1 into paragraphs to start your paper, okay? We did not get to points 4 and 5, so this you'll need to do on your own, okay? So describe societal reactions to the environmental issue. So think about, based on what you put up here, how does your community react to that environmental issue? Okay. Also think about political reactions. Are there any policies that are going to are on the books, or people thinking about implementing to help solve this issue? So start thinking about points 4 and 5 and see if you can complete this whole first part of your paper this week, okay? So, just keep that in the back of your mind. Let's get back into what we're actually going to be dealing with this week, which is basically air quality and climate change. So let's get into Module 4. So again, we're going to compare the impact of social and political reactions to air quality issues, as well as interpret information about an environmental issue using credible environmental research. So by looking at the module overview, again, we're going to be focusing on the topic of air quality and climate change. So, in the past, our air quality got to the point where it was pretty bad. I remember growing up in elementary school. I lived in Southern California, and we would have what are called smog alerts. So it would be a smog alert day when the air quality was so poor that it was suggested that nobody go outside and exercise, and we would have quite a few of these smog alerts while I was young. But California is a big leader in implementing environmental regulations, and so they implemented some pretty stringent emissions standards, especially when it comes to cars. They have the strictest emissions standards in the nation, and other things like how they get their electricity. They have pretty stringent emissions issues related to that. And because of that, it actually, we're seeing the benefits of that. We don't see, I don't even know if they even have smog alerts unless it's related to fires and things like that. So there's still a bunch that we need to do, especially as we're seeing some of these emission standards becoming more relaxed under the current administration. So we're going to, take a closer look at it. We're going to look at the Clean Air Act. We're going to look at the, EPA and things like that. Okay. So let's get into the work. Okay. So by the end of this week, you will be able to compare the impact of social and political reactions to air quality issues. So again, this is air quality issues, but in your environmental issues project paper, you're going to be comparing social and political reactions to your own environmental issues. So this will give you kind of an idea of what to look for in developing those two sections in your project, even though they're probably not related to air quality. So we're going to do some discussion board posts, okay? We're also going to do a worksheet assignment where we're going to interpret information about our environmental issue that we're talking about with our project using a credible environmental research paper. So what we call a peer-reviewed source or a primary source. And so this week we have another chapter assignment from our textbook, as well as a couple of videos which will help you compose your initial discussion board post. We have our worksheet assignment, which again involves a journal article, a peer-reviewed original research paper. And then you'll also need to respond to your peers for your discussion board post. So we have two things we're doing this week: a discussion board post with the initial post due Thursday and the two response posts due Sunday. And then we have our worksheet assignment that's also due on Sunday. Okay. So in your textbook, you're going to be reading chapter 13. So chapter 13 talks about what a pollutant is and how it relates to the impact on the environment and human health. Okay, so you'll learn about things like point source and non-point source pollution and things like that. So while you're reading through your textbook, try to answer these two questions. So the first one, how do you contribute to air pollution on a daily basis? And how does your local community contribute? So think about ways that you create non-point source pollution, like for example the emissions that come out of your vehicle. So think about those type of things, as well as where's your energy coming from? Where's the electricity that's powering your computer right now? Does it come from, what type of power plant does it come from? Okay, so that would be more of a point source pollutant. What measures do you think would be most effective in your life and your local community to decrease your contribution to air pollution and climate change? So basically, what ways can you come up with to reduce those emissions from either point source or non-point source emissions? So we also have some websites for you to visit. So we have outdoor air quality data from the EPA and Air Now. And then we have two videos on that basically talk about air pollution and how it affects human health. Okay. And then, as always, we have additional support to help you with your writing if you need help with anything like that. Okay. So let's get into our initial discussion board post. So the discussion topic this week is reactions to air quality issues. So first we need to basically understand the different types of, the factors that affect air quality. So you're going to be playing around with this model. Basically you're going to look at how the different variables affect the air quality over time. So I'll just show you what it looks like. So here, it's kind of similar to the ones we used last week with the different permeability of the landscapes and rural versus urban areas. So this relates to air pollution. So we have, different things that you can slide back and forth for conditions, environmental conditions, and then sources of pollutants. Okay, so just having everything the way it is, you can press play and you can see, here's a couple of pollutants going into the air from the cars, and then you have other, pollutants coming down. And you can see here the primary pollutants are kind of in this brownish color, secondary pollutants are in the orange color. Okay. Then you can, play around. Well, what happens if I keep everything the same, but it gets really hot? How does that affect things? Okay, so you can see that the primary pollutants, they're, rising a little bit more than they did earlier. Okay, secondary pollutants stay the same. Okay, what happens if I, implement a policy where cars are all electric? Okay, how would that affect things? So you can kind of see, does that affect the primary pollutants and the secondary pollutants? So you can play around with both the environmental conditions as well as, different possible policies that can be implemented. So look at how much the primary pollutants have decreased, and you don't even see any secondary pollutants being released. Okay, so you'll play around with this, see, different issues that pop up. And then once you've, made some notes on, what, how each variable changes the air quality index, next you're going to answer the following question. Okay, so do you believe societal or political reactions have made a bigger difference in reducing air pollution in the United States? Okay, so to answer that question, you're going to need to follow, consider some other questions. So think about the Clean Air Act. So that federal policy has regulated human activity in relation to air pollution. So how has that affected things? You might have to, go back and look into the impacts of the Clean Air Act over time. Are there any additional programs in your city or state that are regulating air quality that have been implemented by the government? So, if you're from California, there's a couple of other ones. If you're in other states, there might not be any. So you can look up and see at the state level if there's anything that regulates air quality at the state level. If not, you can look at the local level, like your city. Does your city have any regulations? Okay. And board post, it should take, a couple paragraphs. So first you're, kind of describing what you learned about, societal and political reactions at the federal level, and then, how it relates to your local level. So I would, spend about a paragraph talking about the federal level, societal and political reactions, and then at the local level with your own area. Okay, and don't forget to include your in-text citations where appropriate and your full references at the bottom of your post. So that post due Thursday midnight. For your response posts, you're going to do two response posts, but it's a little different this time because you're going to be answering the responses differently. So in your first response post, you're going to explain how your particular community or state has reacted to the issue of air quality and discuss the outcomes of this reaction. So based on what your peer wrote, you can compare your community's or state's reaction to air quality to theirs and discuss, the outcome of this reaction. And then in your second response post, you're going to identify at least one global initiative or program that works to regulate air quality. So, there's a few out there. So you're going to, take a look and describe them and compare the impact of global reaction to air pollution to that of the reaction your peers discussed. Okay, so the first post is more of, comparing your community to their community. And the second post is comparing the global community to, what is taking place here. Okay. So those two response posts are due by Sunday midnight. Okay. So that is our discussion board post. And then you also have another worksheet assignment here. So this worksheet assignment, again, this has to do with your final project again. As part of the final project, let me go ahead and go back to the final project guidelines and rubric. It says here, even under our environmental issue, you're required to use a credible research to support your descriptions. So we've looked at the government websites as credible sources, but we also have the usage of journal articles. Okay, so academic journals are important sources for you to use in going directly into the research and stating based on that research, the different impacts to the environment or sustainable solutions or whatnot. Okay. So in this assignment, you're going to learn how to read one of these peer-reviewed articles and decipher the information. So let's take a look at the guidelines and rubric for the assignment first. Okay, so what is a peer-reviewed article? Well, first off, peer-reviewed articles, they're academic journal articles that have undergone peer review by the researchers who are experts in that field. Okay, so it's a little different process than, say, reading a newspaper article or a magazine article or even a government website. So these have been peer reviewed by peers that are experts in the field and their original research. So if we have a researcher doing experiments on how to filter pollutants out of smokestack, for example, they've conducted all of this research, they've done experimentation, they collected data, and now they're going to describe their findings in a peer-reviewed journal article. So before they are able to publish that peer-reviewed journal article, the article goes under close scrutiny by experts in the same field of study. And so these experts will read through the research, make sure that everything is done in a scientific manner, that there's no bias, there's everything looks sound, that the results could be replicated by anybody else and get the same results from doing the same experiment, so that kind of thing. And so it's a lot different than just, say, reading a newspaper article. Well, the newspaper article is a secondhand source. Okay, so the journalist is reviewing something from an expert and kind of relating it in an easier to digest article. Peer-reviewed research is from the researchers themselves. It's their research. They're the original source. They're the primary source. So it is a little bit more tricky to read a primary source article because everything is more in scientific jargon. And so this is your opportunity to start to learn more about how to read these articles. Okay, so in the assignment, you're going to watch a video from SNHU on peer-reviewed research, and then go through the Shapiro Library Understanding Information section. And then you're going to choose a peer-reviewed article to review. So we do have a list of peer-reviewed articles provided. Okay, so you can choose whichever environmental issue that you're writing your paper on and narrow it down to one of these. Okay, so if I open up one of them, like for example, habitat loss and herbivore attack on recruiting oaks, it will open this, okay, in which case you just have to type in Southern New Hampshire. New Hampshire University, and it'll let you in. Okay, so once you get through that that part of it, it'll open up that particular article. Okay, so here is the article. Now if I read through it, there's an abstract, so this is summarizing the article. And then that's it. So I actually have to download the entire article, or I can use a PDF, or I can go into JSTOR. But let me just show you what it looks like. This is an actual scientific articles. So you can see that it looks a lot different from a newspaper article. You have the authors listed at the top, you have a title, and then you have the journal where it came from. It always goes in the same order where you have an abstract, which summarizes the article. You have an introduction that gives you background research. And notice, by the way, look at all of those in-text citations. There's in-text citations all over the place, okay? So when I keep telling you to use in-text citations, it's because it's common practice, okay? We always use in-text citations. And notice there's no quoting. These people that wrote this, they did this whole section without any quotes, okay? Because scientists, we don't quote. There's a methods section that includes how they set up their experiment. There's a results section that gives the data kind of in visual format as well as in text. And then a discussion section where they discuss their findings, okay? And then the last thing you'll want to note when you look at a peer-reviewed journal article, look at the literature cited section, okay? It's almost as long as the article itself. It's 3 pages long, okay, or 2.5 pages long. So that's a lot of citations. Last time I looked, when I read a newspaper article just this morning, no literature cited sections, okay? They don't cite their sources, really. Occasionally they'll cite, maybe where the information, to look for, but they don't, it's not extensive like this. So this is written by the researchers themselves, and they've cited everything appropriately, including in-text citations at the end of the sentences, as well as a list of all the references at the end. Okay, so that's similar to how you're going to set up your environmental paper, your environmental issues paper. You'll have these in-text citations throughout your paper, citing where you got the information from, and you might have three references at the bottom, maybe more. It won't be as extensive as this. Okay, so this is just to give you an example. So once you settle in on some sort of paper, it doesn't have to be from the list, by the way. You can use another peer-reviewed source. Just make sure that it is scientific, okay? Because we're dealing with the scientific issues here. All right. So you'll use a peer-reviewed source, and then if we take a look at the actual worksheet, the worksheet itself it's kind of like the first worksheet that we did with the government websites, but this time we're doing it for a peer-reviewed source. So you'll write the article, the citation in APA format, so that's that full citation, kind of like what you saw at the bottom of that paper. Okay, so if I look at the bottom of the paper, this is APA citation of this, this particular source that Harvey and McDougall used to write their paper, okay? So you'll need to use APA format to construct the full citation for this paper, if you use this paper, okay? Going back, where'd it go? There it is. And then what is the purpose of the article? So write some information about the methods, the purpose, the results, everything else, okay? So this worksheet is due by Sunday midnight. Okay, so let me go back to our guidelines. And then just be careful before you submit, make sure that you're reading through the rubric. Make sure that you've checked off each of these boxes in your head, that your worksheet contains them, so that you meet expectations in all the categories. All right, so that is worth 80 points. All right, so that is basically the 2 assignments that we have this week. So again, we have our discussion board post that relates to air pollution, and then we have our peer-reviewed research source that will help us with our environmental issues final project. Okay, If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Otherwise, good luck.